Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Room 11 at City Hall. This is the December 8th meeting of the DGR Subcommittee to the Holyoke City Council. And we have not a long agenda, but we have a good agenda. So we're going to introduce who's here first, and then we'll start the agenda. So I've got Howard Graney with me, Pete Tallman, Mike Sullivan, Terrence Murphy, Joseph McGivern, and Linda Bacon, and Gladys LeBron Martinez, who's also on the committee. And with that, we will go to agenda item 1, previous meeting minutes, please. Take a motion, please.
Motion to receive the minutes.
You gotta take them off the table first.
Motion to take off the table.
Motion made, second to remove the item from the table. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Previous meeting minutes, I thought they were very good, myself. Does anybody have a question mark from the 9/27 or 10/4 meeting? Hearing none? I'll
Motion to approve the meeting.
take a motion
Second.
to receive and approve the meeting minutes. On discussion, hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll take agenda item 2 off the table and open a public hearing, if I could, please.
Motion to take item 2 off the table and open up a public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and second to remove agenda item 2 from the table and open a public hearing. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Special permit application of Peter Rosskothen / Delaney / Log Cabin at 3 Country Club Road to replace the existing double-sided billboard facing I-91 with a new double-sided, non-accessory electronic sign of approximately 672 square feet to be mounted on a pole of approximately 40 feet of height with a, quote, V, unquote, shaped structure. So, that's what's before us. Let's see, I believe also, and Peter's right there, I believe we have our law department with us or somewhere. That was my understanding.
They are not here at the moment.
They're not here at the moment. Well, okay, so we have, let's see here. The good news is we have the petitioner with us, so that's going to help us get on the way. I'll turn over to you, Peter, right now. So let's see. I've got. Let's see here. Yeah, I guess I'm going to want to hear about. Let me make sure this is off. Mine's off. Okay. Peter Rosskothen, welcome. Always welcome. Great to see you here at City Council again. You're no stranger to any of us. Peter, tell us what's happening.
I appreciate the time. I feel like I'm here a lot lately. Thank you. Because we're working hard at different ideas and different things. So I appreciate the time. We have a sign, and this is one of those things. I brought a lot of pictures because I think we need to show some graphics a little bit today. But we have a sign for anybody that hasn't seen it or doesn't know what I'm talking about. That's in the back part of the Delaney House. It's a sign that says Log Cabin Delaney right now, says UMass 5 on it. It's a sign of, the exact size of that sign is 20.5 feet long, 10 feet wide, and it's about 35 feet high to the top, just to give you a general perspective. And you heard what our request is, so permission to approach for a second?
Oh, yeah, sure. Come, yeah, just.
Sure. So what I did here is I have pictures of the existing sign.
Oh my God! Well, I'll tell you what. This is
I have
some exciting action photos. This is
Try taking those pictures being on the highway and thinking that you are a cool photographer. What you see in front of you is pictures of the existing sign and a mock-up of what our request is. So you kind of get a comparison of what those two are. So there's two images driving I-91 north in front of you, two images driving I-91 south, and really just trying to give you a comparative of what we have there now and what we would like to have. What we would like to have, we're also requesting the ability to do an electronic sign instead of a sign that is applied with vinyl graphics. The electronic sign would have the beauty that obviously you can do more messages on it, could do citywide messages, could do public service messages for the state. So we'll have the ability to do that and as well as have advertising. So that's quick and simple. I have a lot of more pictures. I'm happy to show them. Or do I wait for a minute for questions?
No, I think this is you. Why don't you show us the pictures you have, and we'll, once we
Okay.
have the materials, we'll ask whatever questions are on our minds.
Don't mind. Permission to approach again?
Yeah, come on. Just sit up here. You're not on the microphone, you're walking here, so we'll take a look at the photos. Yeah. All right.
Two sets of pictures and I'll explain them separately. Just keep those two sets separate.
Okay. All right, so I've got two sets of photos. Which one do you want?
The first set of pictures is really two photos, and what I did there is take pictures from our neighbors from Route 5 side of things. The question in conversation has come up is the visibility from any neighbors, and the answer is no. This sign is strictly only visible to us, the property owners, and to the 91 traffic. I mean, that's why those two pictures don't show anything. The next set of pictures is really billboards that are in our neighboring communities, Northampton and West Springfield, which is the next set of signs that you see along 91. West Springfield having an electronic one. It's hard to see in a picture the difference between an electronic sign and a non-electronic sign, but just kind of to give you a little illustration of what some of those are. Also, you see some pictures of signs that are in Holyoke. Electronic signs, Jerry Rome's type of sign, as well as Cracker Barrel and those kind of signs. Again, the request is to have us change the sign that we have right now for one of these new signs. Through advice, we feel that the sign height, the ideal sign height is actually 40 feet, which is a correction to our request. So the total sign height, base and sign, will be 40 feet. Doesn't need to be any higher than that, and the images you see are actually showing you that. I'd love to answer some questions, conversation.
Okay, well, this is something where we do have a ordinance relative to billboards, which I can assure you I'm not an expert on. And we're hopeful that we do see the law department. Attorney Bissonette, unmic yourself, please, because we will have some questions. So, unmute yourself, I should say. Thank you, Mr. Bissonette. And just be on standby. We'll have a motion to suspend and allow law department. I don't think we need to make a motion.
So moved.
Yeah, so on the motion to allow law department to address us on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, I don't think sometimes we do that, sometimes we don't. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, because we are in a public hearing, this is a fairly orderly process, but and Jeff, you're gonna advise me who's online when we get to the public, okay? So just give me a heads up, please. So, we have a number of people here, we have the whole committee, so I'd just like to do it in order, so if the committee wants to ask questions first, and then I'll ask for the non-committee members, and then we'll go from there. So do any committee members have a question for the petitioner at this point?
No, I was just asking.
Any committee, no? Okay, do any non-committee members have a question for the petitioner at this point?
Just one question.
Counselor Graney?
Are there any, Peter, just for information, is there any state requirements for these signs at all that you need to deal with because of 91, if it's 91?
I believe the answer is no. There is actually a sign in Holyoke, which is one of the photos that I circulated. It's sort of across from the Delaney House on 91, which I believe the state actually owns. So obviously you got to go through the permitting, but as far as I'm concerned, the answer to your question is no.
Thank you.
I think it's strictly a city regulation.
Okay. Okay, no one else. Okay, so Peter, stand there for a second. Mike Bissonette.
Evening, Mr. Chairman.
good evening. Oh, okay, so we don't have a dishwasher or a vacuum cleaner in the background this time. This is a major improvement. Good news. Okay, so Mike, welcome to our little subcommittee. And did you want to add anything to? So first of all, we each had a memo, and I asked Jeff, and I know he did it. Memo dated November 5th, 21. And it's a helpful memo running this by the various department heads. The only one I'm curious about, and Mike, this is where you come in, is from the building commissioner, who said he responded and copied and directed to the planning department and to the law department. He said, quote, "We discussed this. I thought the plan was to have the regulation reference changed. As it is, there is no special permit to issue," unquote. Now, doesn't that throw a little monkey wrench in things? But we'll see. So, Mike, can you give the committee a little direction as to either way, either Mr. Cody's response to in this memo, or directly to the petitioner's question, or if you want to speak in general on billboards or what the city ordinance might say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I've indicated before to the committee and to the council, the ability to grant a special permit lies entirely within your property. And ability to issue that acts as almost a variance to existing ordinances. Now, you can always refer the matter for a variance, which would set up a different dynamic, of course, and a different procedural shape of things to come. But on this application, determination can be made by the city council as to whether or not a special permit would be appropriate, given the current sign ordinance and how this appears to be beyond what is normally allowable.
Okay, so let's just do it in order, because I think I threw a question at you with 3 different questions in it, so let's just do it one at a time. So what you just said, Mike, is the special permit process is in fact appropriate in this case.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So
It is one of 2 vehicles to seek an alteration.
Okay, all right, so that answers that one. Relative to the city ordinances, does this petition comply with so in other words, for zoning purposes, well, actually, it's a special permit. So tell me, in this, generally, we don't allow, for whatever, gosh knows what reason, but decisions were made at a certain point that we don't generally allow billboards in any zone. That's kind of what, any new billboards. This is a modification of an existing billboard, however. So, with that being said, Mike, and you heard what the petitioner said, he wants to have a electronic billboard, Pete?
Ideally, the answer is yes.
Okay, electronic billboard is his preference, 40 feet in height, and so that's from Mother Earth to the top of the billboard?
That is correct.
Okay, and then I thought I heard you say 600 and how many feet?
I think it's 672.
672 square feet. So just in layman's
Yes,
terms, what, that's 20 by 20, 30 by, that's 30 by 20? What is?
It's 14 by, excuse me, I gotta wear my glasses, but 14 by 48.
14 by 48. Okay, so 48 in width?
Yes.
Clearly. Okay, and 14 feet in, okay, the other way, got it. Okay, 14 feet vertically, 48 feet horizontally, there you go. Whew. Boy, that was hard. Okay, so Mike, with that being laid out before you, do you see any issues relative to us granting a permit if the committee so desired to recommend granting a permit based upon that petition?
The only hesitation I would have, Mr. Chairman, is with regard to what's known in the industry as sides. In this case, I think what Peter's seeking to do is switch out from non-electronic stable signs to a digital form of presenting the advertising message. There also may be a question about how the use of that sign relates to the property, whether or not that needs to be solely advertising for Delaney House and its subsidiaries or affiliates, or whether there can be a leasing agreement to allow additional advertising as with other billboards. But if I understand the application correctly, he is seeking to change I'm not going to say the elevation, but more the direction of the sign, that one facing or one south rather than facing sign, which you currently have. And if I'm wrong on that, Peter, please feel free to correct me, but I think if I've seen the drawings correctly, that's what you're looking for.
The answers are correct. And just to clarify, just not to take it away. So right now the sign is, part of it is being paid by UMass 5. The concept is to keep this as a commercial sign, as a viable commercial product. So advertise our property or properties, but also advertise anybody else that's willing to pay for it.
I understand that. Mike, is there a legal question about use? I mean, because right now he's got this rented to UMass 5 College Credit Union and for to raise to generate revenue. I mean, is the use limited to just log cabin, or can he go ahead?
If it's allowed now, under the current billboard rule, his use is grandfathered whether you go digital, electronic, or stable billboards.
All right.
So I think if it's allowed now, it would be advertising for others non-connected with the property would be allowed.
Okay. Peter?
Again, you guys all know me, I'm always straightforward and honest. It's been there for a very long time, but as far as I know, and that's why I put that in the application, I don't believe it's ever been permitted. I cannot find a permit for that sign. I spent some time talking to Mr. Cody and everybody else, and it's even unclear to me how long that sign has been there, but it's, there's no such a thing as a permit in my hands right now, so I want to be very clear on that.
All right, and then I want to be very clear too.
Yeah.
So, because I think that's the best way to do it. I would like to know, and I didn't think ahead. Although I have to say, we'll thank Jeff for taking the initiative here and sending this around to various department heads. But one department head that is not on this memorandum is either our assessor or our tax collector or our treasurer. So I'd like to know whether or not the billboard, actually, I can go to the former mayor of Chicopee, because Chicopee has a ton of billboards. Now, I just realized that. Mr. Former Mayor, does your recollection tell you whether or not the city of Chicopee, during your tenure, collected, I guess it's a personal tax, I assume it's a personal tax, but any kind of tax revenue from the various billboards in Chicopee?
We did, Mr. Chairman. We were fortunate to have 3 locations on city property for which we get $25,000 a year for rental fees to a billboard company. And the other billboards that were not on city property paid annual fees anywhere from $500 to $5,000, I believe. There were also personal property taxes assessed on the structures and the signs themselves.
Okay, I thought it would be personal property. Okay, so it's not real property, so. Okay, so that leads me to this question then, for anybody, whether it's the acting mayor or whether it's the law department. Does anyone know whether or not the city of Holyoke has anything in place to collect revenue from billboards? See that? See. So I guess I'm going to have to get some direction on this, because if we grant a special, first of all, special permit is only good for 1 year, right? And we all know that. But I think, and I heard what you said about being a community-based billboard. I heard that, duly noted. So that's important, because that goes a long way. I mean, that's what Gary does. Gary does a lot of advertising. He does a lot of Gary Rome advertising, but it's.
I think the beauty of an electronic billboard is, and I don't know exactly the percentage, but the state requires, so back to the question, with an electronic billboard, the state requires a certain amount for state messages. And then the conversation that I've had with Lamar, who is obviously interested in our project idea, is I said to them, you gotta at least match it for the city of Holyoke. So if it's an electronic billboard, it has a lot of potential for Holyoke as well as the state. If it's not an electronic billboard, then that unfortunately goes away.
Right, and so what would your position be, Peter, if there was some kind of a fee or a tax? Because it's not like Chicopee, I know you're not excited about it, but I don't even know if we can make that a condition on a permit. Although, I will say, it's my humble opinion, I'll defer to Attorney Bissonnette up to a point, but the broad direction in which we have, as long as it's reasonable, we can put whatever condition we want on there. I mean, it's pretty broad authority, so.
I'm very straightforward, I think you should.
Well, there you go. Now, so then the question would become, how would you make that a condition on a permit? Well, we don't have any kind of a taxing power relative to this. I wouldn't know, but that's something I'd want us to sort of consider. Does somebody have a question? So, well, I'm going to go to Councilor Bacon first, Councilor Sullivan second, and then we'll go take it from there. Councilor Bacon.
Thanks. This is just a technical question. I'm wondering how much larger the new billboard, in whatever form it takes, is compared to what you currently have.
So in square footage, the simple answer, without giving you exact square footage, about 2.5 times. Those pictures that I circulated earlier, Councilor, it gives you a really good visual of that. So I'll grab them in a minute and get them to you. But literally, you can look at the picture of the existing billboard, and I try to take that picture exactly where we're proposing it. So it gives you a really good perspective.
All right. Thank you. I'll take a look at those.
Councilor Sullivan.
I just would like to comment that I don't believe that we have to make the taxation a condition of the special permit. If we have other billboards also in town, like Cracker Barrel and the rest, it's just simply a matter of getting them onto the tax rolls as personal property. It's simply just because it hasn't happened in the past, we should just make sure that it starts to happen going forward.
I'm throwing out there for consideration, Mike, but I think I think you're on point. But if you heard what former mayor, current solicitor said, that Chicopee has an annual fee, and then they have a personal property tax. So the annual fee seems fairly modest, unless it was on city property. This is clearly on private property, so that wouldn't cut it. But the annual fee seems modest, but whatever the personal property tax is, so we'd have to have that run by the assessor, I assume, and there's standards for doing that, right? The assessor would. There's assessing standards for billboards.
Yep.
So then I would ask, then I'd probably at some point make a motion to have attorney and former mayor Bissonnette give us a little guidance on what Chicopee does for that. Councilman McGivern has his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just if I could, through the chair, to the petitioner. Peter, is the billboard on your property?
Yes.
And it's contiguous with the Delaney House?
Yes.
Property.
If you picture, not that you've been there, but the dumpster area in the back, literally right behind the dumpster is this billboard. Uses our power. To be honest with you, one of the reasons I'm here is that billboard is in tough shape. If you go and take a close look at it, it's looking old.
No, the only reason I ask, I'm familiar with the billboard, is the property does make a difference with our ordinance in terms of, and we learned this, I think, through when car dealership, Gary Rome was looking for his sign, which was not on his property, and there was issues with that. I also thought, Mr. Chairman, that the real reason for the special permit, as we heard from our state solicitor, assistant state solicitor, the grandfathering of the billboard, because we have a whole different ordinance for billboards, amended since this billboard was originally placed up. It's been there for so long that the real issue here is just giving permission to go to digital, which is governed both locally and there is some governance, I know, by state about only because cars are going by and digital signs can cause a problem with a driver's view. But I think I agree with Councilor Sullivan. If this is something that the assessors are supposed to be assessing, then the assessors need to assess the way they do every one of them across the, no pun intended, but across the board. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Okay. All righty. Well, let's, I don't see any other councilors. Peter, thank you. Let me ask the public, because we are in a public hearing. Is there any member of the public that wants to address us on this matter, either for or against? Jeff, there's no one here in the audience, in the gallery. So Jeff, is there anyone online?
There are no hands raised at the moment.
No hands are raised online. Okay. Do any other department heads want to weigh in on this matter other than the aforesaid November 5th memo? There's no one in the gallery. Jeff, is there anyone online?
There are not.
No department heads online. Okay, and no other councilors raising their hands. Peter, is there anything you want to add relative to this petition before we take any kind of another step?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. So, and does anyone else have questions for Peter Rosskothen from the committee? We see no other questions. Okay. Well, I don't see a reason why we need to continue this public hearing unless another councilor wants to make a motion.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing and discussion. Hearing none on the motion to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we close the public hearing. And so we have before us a petition, though we heard from the petitioner that they want to modify it a bit. And so what I heard was we want to make this 40 feet in height, and we want to have it be digital, and we want to have it be 14 by 48. That's what I heard. All right, so if that's the case, then we can make a motion to recommend granting it with those conditions on there. I'll make the motion that we add those 3 conditions to the special permit.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to add those conditions to the special permit. Under discussion. Hearing none. On the motion to add 3 conditions to the special permit, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, so the 3 conditions is the height shall be no greater than 40 feet from planet Earth to the top of the sign, that the sign is allowed to be digital, and that the square footage shall be no greater than 672 square feet, which is, in other words, 14 by 48, but however they configure it, 672 square feet. I just want to say it out loud for Jeff, because he's taking notes for us. Are there any other, well, on the tax issue, I think we heard, we had discussion on it. We heard from the petitioner that sounds good to tax it. I think we should probably consider sending making a motion to send to get an opinion from the assessor relative, because I'd like to get that on the agenda for November 16th, so we're all dealing with the same thing at the same time. So I'll make a motion that we refer the following question to the assessor relative to personal property taxes and or user or license fees for billboards. If the assessor could give us a little breakdown on that, and in general, so who's being taxed, and specifically, what would the personal property tax be for this as described? So that's my motion.
I'll second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Under discussion, hearing none. On the motion to send the aforesaid question to the assessor, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, so we have something for the assessor. And Jeff, the intent of that was to get something from the assessor for Tuesday's meeting. So we would need that by, well, unless it's late file, but hopefully by Friday at noon, he can have that to the clerk. Okay, Jeff?
I will get that over to him.
Thank you very much. Okay, so those are and we want to thank Attorney Bissonnette for giving us some guidance, not only as an attorney, but also as his role as a former mayor, because he was, Mike, 8 years as mayor?
We measure it in dog years, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, all right, a long time.
I think Mayor Murphy knows that.
8 long years. For Mayor Murphy, it's been 8 long months. There you go, huh? But how time flies. Okay, so, is there any other discussion from the committee relative to this? I'll take a motion to recommend granting the special permit with the aforesaid conditions.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's made and seconded to grant the permit as stated. On discussion. Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. So, to Peter, what all that gobbledygook was is that we are a little tiny subset of the city council, and we humbly recommend what we just said, which I'm not going to repeat, to the full city council, which will meet next week on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. And you can watch on Channel 15, or you can come here, or you can watch on the Zoomer, whatever your pleasure. You have all these options. Isn't that exciting? Okay?
Thank you very much. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thank you. All right, that was that. I will take a motion to remove number 3 from the table.
Motion to take item number 3 off the table for
Motion made
discussion.
a second to remove agenda item 3 from the table. On discussion, hearing none. All in favor? On the all in favor? Aye. Filed December 15th, 2020. Holy cow, that was a long time ago. Ordered. I like that. The City Council's DGR committee worked with the Planning Department and Mayoral, and the Mayor's office to redraw ward lines according to the new federal census. We took this up in January, February, and March. And at that point, we heard that we're not going to get a whole lot of information for a bit. But now, unfortunately, we have Mr. Vega here with us, so we're going to get some more information. Aaron, I think in this case, why don't you come inside the gate and grab a seat wherever you feel comfortable at one of the desks. I think it would just make sense. You know, wherever you feel comfortable. Wherever there's room. Okay. And, yeah, you know how to turn the microphone on and all that good stuff. Okay, and so for the public, we just welcomed in the Office of Planning and Economic Development Department Head, Aaron Vega. Aaron, welcome.
Thank you.
You're very good. And so we have a number of items, but before we even get to those items, I want to just make one small, very point clear, because it was relayed to me at one point that we need to get our census stuff in by now, but that is not accurate. That's been revised. That's not accurate right now. It may have been accurate at the time. So my understanding is, and I'm reading this from an MMA bulletin. You love the MMA, Pete?
Mass Mutual Association.
Yeah,
Couple meetings, yes.
you're good. Once the legislature has completed the state and federal districts, cities and towns will have 30 days to complete their precincting process as long as they finish by December 15th. So that's the good news. So we're not under incredibly extreme pressure to do this. So December 15th is where we are. I want that clear. I also would like us to not kill ourselves tonight, but at least hear from Mr. Vega and hopefully the acting mayor and any other councilors that want to speak. And then we can maybe give some input of what we would like to see, and then maybe we would have we will have a DGR in some point in December, and before the 15th, I think it would be prudent, and that'll be agenda item 4. And then I think at that point, we can take a final vote on where our precincts line will be. But I'm just one vote, so we'll see how that goes. Mr. Vega, how would you like us to proceed at this juncture?
Good evening. It's your court. I don't have that information you just told me, so that's new information, so that's good. I've forwarded all the information that we've gotten along the way for the last couple of months. The state had provided a draft map. There were no ward changes. There was only three precinct changes. They actually, I think, harken back to the 2010 lines, but don't quote me on that. And they, so this is new information you just provided. So if we have time, I guess then we are in position that we would have you review the maps that the state has provided and go from there.
Now, do I have the maps that the state provided in legible form? In other words, is this the map they provided?
We have copies of it. Yeah, we have that. I believe that's the map they provided.
Okay. This is
It's small.
just,
It's extensive.
No, we print the map.
oh, I'm not being
We
critical.
can print it we can print full-size maps. We weren't asked to have that for tonight. So we can do that.
Oh, okay, well, I mean, although we weren't asked, I think it would be a good idea, and I'm just speaking as one person, that we would have not only a map, and maps are all well and good, but I think it would be, and this is just my take, it would be nice to have the listing of streets that are within each precinct. And I say this because, again, there's no fault of any other prior city council. This is just my humble opinion. But I would, and I'm just thinking in terms of Gordon Drive, where you have the north side of Gordon Drive in Ward 3, and you have the south side of Gordon Drive, which is all of about, I don't know, Joe, 20 houses on it, something, I mean, give or take, and Ward 5. Now, I like Gordon Drive. I like having it in Ward 3. However, it is proximate to Donahue School, and it just seems to me, for example, and I'm sure other ward councilors can talk about other streets divided in half, it just seems to me if we can have the whole street in one ward, I don't know why that would. If we can't do it, then we can't do it. But it would be nice if we had. The other question I would have is I would like to know the exact numerical breakdown, however the wards and precincts are broken up. I mean, so it's 38,000 residents, I think according to the census. Terry, if I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong, but I'm not off by much. And then, and I'm going to defer to Councilor McGivern on this one. So are we dividing 14 into 38,000 and then just breaking it down that way? But I would like to know the exact, and I think that it's just so small. That looks like that might even be beyond there. Precinct bound, 2020 population. Yeah, okay. That looks like that might even, okay. Are these all pretty well even?
Yep.
Pete? Yep. And then Terry? So what's the mean, if you will? So is there a mean? Wow, I cannot see that. The mean is what? Like 2,700?
2,800.
2,700 would be the mean?
Like 2750, I guess.
2,750, Terry?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so what would be the?
If I could, just in terms of population, that's usually.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay, maybe there's one where I can. Oh, look at this.
There you go.
Okay.
At the 2010 and 2020.
Oh, look at this.
We did a breakdown that I think you have of each ward.
Yeah, this is actually legible, and this is
I'm not sure
a
what.
lot help, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, they got it.
Yeah, we did that. Jack and Jeff did that on the planning board.
Oh, great.
Planning
Tell them
staff.
I said thank you. And I really appreciate that. Oh, okay, and they even did like a little change. Okay, so Ward 1 dropped down by 117, Ward 2 went up by 376.
Down by 370.
Down, sorry, wow, my bad.
Yeah.
Ward 3 down by 308. Ward 4 down by 262. Ward 5 down by 208. Ward 6 down by 288. Ward 7 down by 32. All righty, and so looking at I mean, it looks like the numbers are all, when we did this, did you provide the list of streets that made up these numbers, Aaron?
No, we did not provide a list of streets, just the map that was provided by the state, and then we just took the census numbers and did the difference.
Okay, so the Commonwealth provided everything broken down into precincts.
Into precincts.
Okay, so they did
And
that.
then we just went back and looked at the numbers from 2010 to make that sheet you were looking at. They didn't provide that.
Okay, yeah, this is nice. Okay, they didn't provide this, no? Or they did?
That one they provided, we did the number.
Oh, okay, yeah, you did this, yes. Okay, they provided this little,
And I think, like I said, the ward lines didn't change, there's the 3 precinct lines that changed.
okay, which precinct lines changed? Did you have that written down for me somewhere?
I think it's 1, 6, and 5, I have to double check. I'm not sure if. Right here. Yeah, 3 lines.
It was Ward 2, Ward 4, and Ward 5.
2, 4, and 5.
And who might that have been?
That's Jeff Burkhardt, our principal planner.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello, sir.
Okay, 2, 4, and 5. And Jeff, can you just elaborate on that a little bit? So in other words, in Ward 2, what was the change?
Well, so in Ward 2, and the thing is, this kind of echoes back to what was previously there in 2000, as well as I think it may have shifted back in 2010, where, we're told that we have to look at physical boundaries as well as street-related boundaries. So to I guess I'll call it the north-northwest, it's the Pioneer Valley Railroad down to Meadow Street, and then using Main Street as the center line. That is going back, and that was formerly or currently in Ward 2B, and is becoming 2A up till the point of the railroad at South Street. So it's kind of being pushed to the north back to 2B.
Okay, and Jeff, just to get kind of a little technical on you, on if I may, and if you can't answer this now, then that's okay. On South Street, if you're familiar with that little jog to the right as you head towards there's a little, the line is drawn there for Ward 3, so between 3 and 2. So just looking at the numbers, I'm just curious. That was another one off the top of my head where you just below the car wash. I forgot the new name.
Yeah, Kaya, down by Paul Mazzarello's Vin's Car Wash.
Yeah, it was Vin's. I think it, maybe it's still called Vin's, but it's a new owner. There's, I don't know, there's probably 3 or 4 houses on the left-hand side. Yeah, a little jog down, yes. And then and before you make the turn, right? So right, that's still South Street, but as it kind of turns, and so it's on the right-hand side, there's a couple homes there that vote in Ward 2. So I'm kind of curious as to why they would be in Ward, as opposed to Ward 3. So, I mean, those are, I mean, and do we have the authority, either Aaron or Jeff or the acting mayor, do we have the authority to adjust those if we wanted, if the city council so wanted?
Well, now that there's.
I mean, basically, you can redraw the whole map if you want. It's just that you have to follow center lines of roads or geographical features, including railroads and whatnot. So center lines of streets, center lines of water bodies, or other geological features. So, I mean, if you wish, you can redraw the whole thing. But the fact of trying to capture, you can't go down an alleyway. You can't go down, so your chances are, depending on where the precinct line presumably could fall, one side of the street might be voting one way, or rather be in one ward, or rather precinct, or the other side. I mean, there's no way around them.
No, I think that makes sense, and I hear you, but I guess, to my opinion, it would be nice if whole streets were in one ward, as opposed to half the center line having one side be a ward and the other side be a different ward. I guess that's just me. Now, maybe other councilors may not worry about it.
The only other balance is
Right,
the population.
there's just, the thing is, the guidelines we're given, you're following the center lines of streets. So, looking at the difference between 3B and 5B, using Wedding Farms Road, I mean, there's no way we can't say following a line to the rear of the properties to the north. It has to be down the center line of a road, center line of a railroad, center line of a water body, or other geographical feature. Those are just the rules that we're given.
Now I understand why Gordon Drive probably split in half, because you had to take a center line of a road, just to.
Right, and it's all about the numbers within that block, so sure, you can take certain other, it's all based on census blocks. So therefore, the census is taken, a certain block might have 32 bodies. So with that, it's kind of like a shell game. Well, 32 you're gonna have to take 32 from someplace else if you're moving.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Right.
Can I?
Councilor Martinez.
Yeah, the drawing of the streets is very, for example, where I'm at 224 Elm Street, my neighbors right across the street are on Ward 4. And I'm on Ward, that's my street.
See what I mean?
Elm Street, and the people across the street are Ward 4. It's so confusing. Then it switches over to Cabot to the right and jumps over to Walnut. You know what I'm saying? So it's very confusing. I'm glad that is coming up, because they asked me why, and I kept explaining this has to do a lot with the census. It may change, it may not change, but a lot of the people across, and it's like that in many of my streets that I'm divided like in half of the street.
But there's a difference, I think there's a difference between, I think what Councilor Bartley is saying, the street, halfway through the street being one thing or the other, but since it's the center line, Homestead's the same, right? Ward 3 and Ward 5 are split in Homestead, so one side of the street is one side, is a different ward.
Right.
Yeah, okay, well, I would, I'm gonna recognize Councilor Graney, then Councilor Tallman, then Councilor Bacon. Is that okay? Councilor Graney.
As far as I can remember going back, this has been a standard in Hoyoke for many, many years. I know St. James Avenue, for instance, for years and years and years, one half of St. James Avenue was Ward 7, the other half was Ward 6. So these problems have existed for as long as I've been alive in this city.
Yeah, at least I appreciate that. Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this is like, I think this is my second or third time going through the redistricting, and it's, I think it's trying to make the minimum impact on the residents, because you're making changes in where people vote. It's difficult, and you got to get the numbers that we had from last year, like, Ward 2B lost 228, but Ward 2A lost 148, so the thing is to take some from that 228 and try to put them where it doesn't affect that many, streets, but it seems like it's going to happen, where you're going to have to cut somewhere on a line or a railroad track to try to make this even. And, I think we said in Ward 5, it looks like since she lost 138 in 5B, that some of those will have to go to 5A, because you only lost 71 in 5A. So it's just like a numbers where you have to make it so, and people don't like getting their places changed where they vote, and it's difficult because it makes it confusing for the city clerk, for the people at the polls. I voted here 2 years ago, now I'm voting, in another school, and it makes it difficult. So I think it's trying to get the numbers and trying to make a minimal impact as possible to try to make it easier for everybody.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So the folks in 5B will be happy to vote at McMahon because many of them live right near McMahon. So they'll be pleased with that. I'm happy to hear that the ward lines won't need to change. 10 years ago when we did this, we followed that same thinking. Keep it simple, make as few changes as needed to meet the numerical balance. But to Counselor Bartley's point, I think we do have the opportunity for small streets where we would not be violating the balance of the numbers, like Gordon. We might be able to shift something like that without creating a big disruption. But the larger streets like Homestead and those, the numbers just won't work if we start trying to change those, from what I can see. So I think it actually happily looks like this won't be a lot of heavy lifting.
Well, let me ask the
Can
committee.
I just interject one thing real quick? And I'm sorry for, I don't know necessarily the process to interject, but, so for instance, using Gordon Drive as an example, if the numbers are of a certain, depending on the population there, you're gonna have to come down perhaps to the next whole block. So it's not like you're just picking up one side of the street. You're effectively picking up the whole population of a census block, which is then gonna then throw something else off somewhere else. And then you've got to make up for that. So you might be accommodating one number, but then you need to gain it back someplace else.
Okay, so how, well, just if I can, and the process, Mr. Burkett, is just to raise your hand, and then you'll be recognized. That's okay, that's just how it works. But since you raised this issue, do we have the census blocks broken down here on some legible format? So in other words, if we did just go back to Gordon Drive, if we did put Gordon Drive and all of it in Ward, whatever, 5, what effect would that have on the central line business, and what effect would it have on the census blocks?
I'm not going to have it. I mean, I've got all the raw files that make up the file, but I don't have them in a displayable format that I can readily get to at this time. But it's something that can be, we can certainly present that, yes.
But it's answerable. Okay, it's answerable. And then,
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you heard what Councilor LeBron Martinez mentioned about, you say 224, Gladys?
Yep.
Okay, so I listen. I hear what you're saying. All right. So proximate to Elm Street, I mean, is there a little jog around there that maybe could be, because if we see the numbers in 1 and 2, I mean, we could use a little bump up in voter turnout, and if there's a way to turn out the voting, even better in 1, 2, and 4. Actually, all of them. Who am I kidding? All of them were pretty bad. So that would be something for us to consider, Jeff. I think I saw Councilor McGivern, and I saw Councilor Murphy, so I'll go in that order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I just want to say thank you to Jeff, to Aaron. But Jeff, I know you've done a lot of work on this while we've been, and Councilor Bartley's been so good about keeping this in committee and keeping us in touch. And I know it's been I don't know how much of a COVID delay, but a delay with the census and everything. Jeff, I think what you're going to find out to the committee is on Gordon Drive, we argued and were allowed to split a census tract. And when we did that, the other part of this formula is you have to be balanced between each precinct, and you have to be balanced between each ward within X of the medium number itself. And the good news, I agree, and I think we all agree, is it looks like we're pretty much balanced, and we can maybe do some tweaking as far as the wards go and precincts go. But I think and I'm going by memory, but I think you're going to find out with Gordon Drive, because Councilor Bartley, I remember we had a problem with Ward 3 then. Ward 3 had to gain numbers that particular 10 years ago. It might have been 20 years ago, I'm not sure, Councilor Tolman, but and when we had to gain numbers, the only way we could do it was set up, one of the ways we could do it was set up Whiting Farms Road. But we didn't want to go that far because, like Jeff said, we would have gained too much. And at the same time, it made no sense to go, like you just pointed out, too far down South Street, because that's not the same type of neighborhood, in terms of the populations and the way populations think. As far as what we're pointing out, because the center line has to go down the middle of a road, every ward somewhere has someone on the other side of the street that lives in a different ward. Doesn't make sense from what we're trying to do, but somewhere along the line, we're industrial tight-knit community, especially downtown with the grid, the way it was set up, where sooner or later, people have to be on the other side of the street. But I think this gives us a lot to work with. I just suggest one thing. In March, we received a 72-page document through the full city council from the state. We have not received this officially from the state. I think it should be filed on our agenda to receive, when do we meet? Next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Just to, so the full city council has a copy of the map and a copy of the numbers for the census. Because the city has received it, but the city council hasn't yet. And I'm not, not trying to be critical. I'm just saying we're in good shape because we have the numbers in front of us. I think we can all work together. I also suggest that the newly elected ward councilors be invited in, if they haven't been, to see what's going on with these redrawings so we can hear from them. That's it.
Well, I'm just going to respond that I think all those are good points. So I would just humbly ask the Jeff and Aaron to file the communications that Councilor McGivern referenced for by Friday at noon, so that we have these breakdowns. I thought they were already sent to City Council. I thought that's how they got before me now. But if they weren't sent to City Council, to the clerk's office, then they need to be. So that's important. Relative to particular invites for anyone, I think any newly elected person, for whether it's at large or ward or wherever they are, should be invited to. And I think that our clerk should get agendas out to all of them henceforth. So whether it's a full city council or a subcommittee, all agendas should be sent to any newly elected person. So I'll humbly ask Jeff to work with the city clerk to effectuate that. So that'll mean that they can maybe get themselves up to speed a little bit. I'm trying to understand this. So that means you got to collect emails, Jeff, and I don't think you necessarily have to send out mailers to them, but you certainly should email documents to them. Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, I just, looking at the numbers, and I really think, I'm surprised we're even thinking about any precinct changes only on this basis. So if you look at Ward 1, 1A and 1B, there's a difference of 25 votes out of 5,479. If you look at Ward 2, there's a difference of 16 votes out of 5,398 from one precinct to the other. If you look at Ward 3, the difference is a little bigger. That is 134 out of 5,422. Ward 4 is a difference of 12 out of 5,388. Ward 5 is a difference of 46 out of 5,670. Ward 6 is a difference of 80 out of 5,334, and Ward 7 is a difference of 9 out of 5,547. And if you look at the ward situation in terms of totals, in 2010, the most discrepancies from one ward to the other was 300. And that was from Ward 5 to Ward 7 in terms of population. And if we look at it this year, the highest number of difference is 336, which is also Ward 5 this time against Ward 6. So, I mean, we really don't have a lot of, in my opinion, discrepancy. I do think when you make changes, sometimes we create more confusion. And in this particular case, we're not talking about changing the wards in the sense we don't do things by precinct in terms of electing anybody. I would really encourage us to stay pretty as consistent to where we were. Maybe we do need to do a better job promoting elections. There's no question of, or getting people involved in elections is probably a better way to say that. But I just think I agree with Councilor Tallman. The more changes you make, then all of a sudden the confusion comes, and the harder it gets, the more confusion it gets, I would venture the less people show up. But again, looking at the numbers, I just would say we'd stay as close to where we were in terms of the lines. The numbers pretty much say we're okay. Then there's you know, people who knew what they were doing this time are gonna know what they're doing next time, so. Just a suggestion.
Right, yeah, all those are valid points. Anyone else want to, Aaron Vega?
So when we're done, I just want to make sure that I go through and make sure we have clarity on what you want. And if someone can forward, I'm surprised that we didn't get the MMA notice. So happy that if we can, because I want to know the time, we should know the timeline working backwards. So is it December 15th signed and approved by the Secretary of State's office? So working backwards, we'd have to submit something to them, whatever, December 5th. I mean, just thinking, I don't know how that all works. So December 15th is the deadline for approval from the state. So just figuring that out, and we can work with you.
Well, the way I read this is that December 15th is completion by the municipality. That's the way I read it. Although it says 30 days to complete the re-precincting process from the date that the legislature has completed the state and federal districts. So when was that? That was signed into law by Governor Baker? Mm-hmm. When?
I have to double check.
Well, this week, wasn't it? Was it this week, or was it yesterday or Friday? It wasn't like
last week, yeah.
It wasn't 10 years ago, so.
Nope.
So I think it was pretty recent, so let's just say December, yeah, December, but this gives a drop dead date December 15th, so I think we're,
Right. Yeah,
I think we're okay.
Yeah, I just, again, to get approval, I think it has to be approved. Again, once you all sign it, because I was involved with it 10 years ago, you sign it, and then it gets approved by the Secretary of State. So we'll drop off a couple large maps, those maps, printed out nice and large from the plot printer that we now finally have, and we have ink and everything for. Thank you. Then you want, and we actually have a little carve-out we can send to that dictates, that shows exactly where the precinct line changes were, so we can give you that. A list of streets, that might be with the clerk's office, but I'll work with Brenna on that one.
well, at least, hold on, Jeff. At least, and I see Mike Bisson's hand up too, so hold on, and Jeff, yeah, you just gotta give me a heads up when I miss those things, so, at least the borderline streets, I guess I would certainly want those, so I would want the whole border for Ward 3, I know I would want that, I know I want it, so I would imagine.
So that's a deliverable that comes out of this. So, in 2010, we drafted an outline, or a verbal outline that pretty much spelled that out. But I mean, right now, if we give it to you, it's gonna be 2010s because the changes haven't been made. If you want just the borders.
Why can't you give 2020's proposal?
Because we don't have, because at this point, it's not real. Unless you want us to redraft it to make this real, it seems like we're doing it twice then. I mean, right now, we've got 2020's boundaries, because that's part of the deliverable that we have to provide to the state, is we have to provide a boundary for the wards and the precincts. So, we draft, for what it's worth, I was involved in this in 2000, I was involved in it in 2010, and now I'm involved in it in 2020. So, I'm somewhat familiar with the process. But right now, unless you want us to draft the whole, with these changes, we can do that, but there's nothing been final yet, so is that just a moot point?
Well, to answer your question, first of all, I appreciate your experience, but in my opinion, you're not making the call on this. It's the city council.
Oh, I know I'm not, sir. I know the councilor, yes, I know that, but
I know you know that, so
let me just
finish. Jeff, can I just humbly finish my point? Humbly. So all I'm saying is that I would just like to see, if it's not too much trouble, just the border lines, if, whether it has to be a duplicate thing or not, I want to see the border lines for Ward 3. Now, if no other councilor wants theirs, fine. But I want to see where Ward 3 is laid out. If it's exactly the same way, all you have to do is send me, just say, the proposal for 2020 is exactly the same, because I know where that entire border. But if there's an alteration in any shape or form, then I want to know what it is. So that's all I need to know. Okay, so if it's exactly the same, every word, I'm not worried about the precinct lines, because the precinct lines are really of no moment. But the ward lines, I just want to know whether are they exactly the same at 2020? So zero change.
That's what we've been told, yes, because again, to the points that you're bringing up, the state doesn't want to do a bunch of changes either. Because even if you do live across the street from a different ward, you're used to it for 20 years, to your point, Councilor Graney. So the state tries to keep that integrity. So our understanding is that no ward lines changed. We will triple check that, but again, it was only the 3 precinct changes, no ward lines.
That's all I need to know. And I know Councilor, Attorney Bissonnette had his hands up. Mike, go ahead.
The only point I wanted to make was the council certainly makes the determination, and you have constitutionally 10% to work with in each ward. So if you did want to make small deviations, numerically, you certainly have the bandwidth to do that. It's around, I think Aaron probably has this, or Jeff has this figure better than I do, but it's around 5,400 a ward. So you probably have 500, maybe 250 a precinct that you could move some things around. But Jeff made it very clear, and I think this is important. If you move an address, you're moving a census block. And so as you do this, you have to be mindful of how many addresses and how many actual adults you've got that you're looking at in that census block. So you're not just moving one household or one side of the street, it's everything that goes with those census blocks. In some places, there could be a lot of lots. In some places, there could be multiple apartment blocks. In some places, obviously, there are a lot of single-family homes. So depending on, if you made a list of where you were looking at to tweak this a little bit, I'm sure planning and OPED could accommodate the council in looking at those particular options. But small modifications, given the time constraints, I think are the only option right here for the council to get the new maps in time for that December 15th deadline. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and Mike, just to Councilor McGivern's point, because Councilor McGivern said there was, and Joe, correct me if I misunderstood you, but I wrote down in my notes, split the census tracts. So is that something that Mike?
Has it been done? Yes, obviously, but it's highly irregular for a lot of reasons, including the direction of federal funds, which are often based on census tracts, and it has become almost the de facto planning map for the entire country now. Census tracts are the way to go to keep track of demographics and various components of federal grant programs. It's very difficult to get those tract splitting arrangements approved by the state and federal government. So, aside from constitutional issues with it, it's well to avoid it if you can, and stay consistent with where people are being sent to vote. The other point I would make, just in passing, is that if there's any consensus or thought at all about changing, reducing, or combining polling places, this is in fact the time to do it as these redistricting changes take effect, even if they're minor at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other can of worms that we're not gonna take that up right this minute, but that's gonna have to be addressed. And perhaps that'll be addressed at the next meeting. So, I mean, I'm just one vote, but I'd like to see some more details, but what's the pleasure of the committee? What do you want to do?
Well, I think we'd like to have another meeting to try to get the numbers, that at least the two, precincts where the changes are. They might be minimal, it might be 50 voters, but at least we have that, and then we could forward that to the full council, hopefully by maybe the first meeting in December. If we got time to get there for the 15th.
We will have time. So we'll that's item number 4. So we'll set our, like we always do, we'll set our next meeting before we walk out of here tonight, and we'll do it before the 15th.
And as Councilor McGivern said, they could forward that to the council so we could receive it to the city clerk.
Yeah, I think that's imperative.
And the maps first.
The maps. Do any other councilors have questions on this? Well, let's just, Councilor Sullivan, please.
It's not a question, I just would like to make a comment and get this out in public. Over the last several years on the council, I've heard a great cry, we need more market rate housing. We need more affordable housing. We need more low-income and more fixed-income housing. We need more housing. Yet our population has gone down by 1,592 people when I add these numbers up. Now, there's a serious disconnect, and it's called public apathy. All right, and we've talked a little bit about it here with the voter turnout, but this voter turnout can be fixed in 2 years if we can get the public engaged. And there's been a lot of talk about engagement the last several months. When we talk about this census tract, not only is it affecting the voter, but for the next 10 years, this is going to affect our federal and state aid. And you can't tell me that we have this huge of a disconnect, that our population has gone down by 1,600 people, and we have a housing shortage. No, the population of this town has gone up. We're experiencing great public apathy out there, lack of participation, and it's going to hurt us for the next 10 years to come. Let's all be clear about that. It's not about just voting, it's about what else is going to go on financially in the city.
Councilor Graney.
Just quickly, one comment too. I think Ward 3 was consolidated to vote at Metcalf School. I think that if we could get all the wards to vote in one location, that might help with the turnout somewhat too as well. I know some wards are split. For instance, 5, you go to Donahue and you go to McMahon. If they could be consolidated to vote in one place where everybody knew that they had to go to one place, I think that's something that the council could work on in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Well, I'll just take a motion to suspend the rules and take agenda item 4 off the table, please.
Let's just suspend the rules and take item 4 off the
In
table.
a second to suspend rules and go to agenda item 4 on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's just to set our next meeting date and time so that everybody knows what we're going to be doing. So I said to, what do we got here? Oh.
Mr. Chairman, if you aren't looking at your calendar, the full city council meetings in December are the 7th and 21st.
Yep, 7th, 21st. And so we certainly, I think as Pete indicated, we certainly want to meet before the 7th. I just think that makes a tremendous amount of sense. Well, the way I kind of like Mondays, but I'm just one person. Let me just look at. Well, I mean, we can consider maybe Wednesday, December 1st. Generally, we don't meet on Thursdays, but Thursday's December 2nd, or Monday, December 6th. But I'd rather not meet that day, but I will. It doesn't
I
matter.
like December 1st myself.
I like that. I can go with a Wednesday, December 1st. Good for me.
Look at that.
I don't know about anybody else.
Gladys, you're flexible, huh?
I'm available.
You're available.
My last chance, my last meeting.
Well, be careful what, who knows?
She said that with a smile.
Your last DGR, possibly no, who knows? We may have an emergency. We've been accommodating to emergencies, have we not, Mr. Mayor? Mike, December 1st?
Fine.
Okay, so our next meeting will be Wednesday, December 1st, so then we go to the tea time. Is everybody okay with 6 o'clock?
Yes.
It just seems like the 6:30, we were just seems like it was too late.
Yeah, 6 is good.
6 okay, 6 o'clock is okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Jeff? All right, so you're not running a marathon somewhere, are you, that day? No, you're all set? Okay. I don't know, I have no idea anymore, everything's changed. Okay, so we'll all right, so we'll just say that's complied with. Okay, so it's just back to 3. Yes, Terry? Aaron, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Just 2 quick things. Just keep in mind, one, that when we're talking about the numbers, it's not talking about the voters necessarily, it's residents. So just to throw that out there. And, I think when we first saw those numbers, just anecdotally, we were so shocked. And our first inclination was, there was undercounting in Ward 1 and 2. But when you see the numbers down across every ward, I mean, it's an undercounting. There's no question it's an undercounting in this. And now things are gonna change, and it does affect a lot of things. It affects everything from our liquor license quota to state aid, so, it's not a good position to be in, to have the population go down. But it definitely doesn't make sense. When you look at the developments that have happened, when you look at even downtown, there's no empty apartments. So definitely, some undercounting, which is really strange. And then my last question is just to confirm, am I filing, the information for this through Councilor McGivern or Councilor Bartley? Through the clerk's office, who do you want that?
You can file it right through Councilor McGivern.
Okay.
Just to ask that question.
Councilor Murphy.
Just, and there, you might be my, but, you know, we have so much emergency housing that's taken up a number of our apartment units. What's the impact? I mean, I'm going to venture, and I don't know this, but I'm going to venture that many are not considered part of the census or do not fill out the census, and therefore, while our population may be greater, because of some transients and people moving in that aren't necessarily really wanting to be here, in many cases, that they don't actually, so we have housing apartments that have people in them, and if we counted them, our population would be up, but many of them are not being counted, and they're not filing census data because they don't really, for lack of a better word, consider themselves part of the whole population. And that is, I mean, I've been trying to work with CHD and getting, I mean, how many units do we have that are emergency units for people coming in, and how long are they staying there, and there's transients, and what does that do when you have apartment buildings that have a number of units, but very few people are counted in the census? And I'm not trying to be inhumane to the people that need housing, and that's obviously important, but if we have so many units that impact, then that does draw numbers down, and it would draw them down significantly.
Well, I don't think it's just a numbers game, Terry. That's all we're talking about. The same way with group homes. How do we know how many people are in a particular home, and whether or not they're counted? Are the managers of the group homes counting all 16 people or 4 people or however many people are in there? Are they counting anybody? Are they responding? Because they don't pay tax, do they? They ban city services, but otherwise, no city tax. So, I mean, those are, I mean, you're not saying anything wrong there. It's simply a numbers game. That's all we're talking about here. But that being said, I think we got a date. So I'll take I guess we'll just
Table.
motion to table. Hold on, Councilor Bain, you have a question?
Yeah, that's appropriate. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So we're going to table number 3. Motion to table?
Motion to table item 3.
Motion made and seconded, table number 3, non-debatable. Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are at the point where we're going to adjourn, but did you want to make a?
Just quickly, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd like to thank all the men and women who served our country. Veterans Day is coming up on a Thursday, so thank a veteran. Thank you.
Oh, we'll diddle that, and we're going to have some great services on Thursday morning at the War Memorial at 10 bells. And I know we'll be there. I know we'll be there.
Coffee at night?
We'll be there. Okay, we'll take one more motion, please.
Motion adjourned.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn, non-debatable. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.